Okay, and we're back. Sorry, we had a few technical difficulties, a few glitches, but we're back. Yay, live. So we're talking today on how do I know my child needs a tutor? And I'm Rebekah Ricks. I'm with the Homeschool Connection here in Winter Haven, Florida. And I am on our vlog here called The Brew. So we're just gonna kind of backtrack a little bit. Sorry about that. And talk about the different types of tutoring and whether or not to tell for specifically does my child need a tutor. And I was saying earlier before, I don't know what happened, craziness struck, lightning or something struck our equipment, that how can you really tell? Usually a child typically will be progressed in a certain subject and not in another, because that's just normal. That's kind of how our brain works. We do well in a certain subject and not in another. And I was talking about remediation is a type of tutoring where or maybe a teacher would say, or someone else outside your family would say, oh, I noticed that they're struggling in this area. I think that they could use some tutoring. You can do maintenance, which is kind of when you have worked really hard on a skill and then all of a sudden summer comes and you're afraid that you've worked really hard on this skill, whether it's reading or multiplication, or if you're older and you've been drilling some positive and negative numbers, and you're afraid that they're going to lose that over the summer. So you might want to do something once a week to maintain that. We all need breaks. I'm a big believer in breaks. I think we all need a vacation every now and then. Kids need a break from school, but sometimes it's good to kind of maintain something. And then you can just have what I kind of call a support group, a support tutoring. It's kind of a mixture of remediation and tutoring. So if I'll have a student that comes in and says, the very, very, very first step is always going to make sure to do some sort of assessment unless you specifically know there's an area that they need to work on. So if you are not local and you are somewhere else, find a tutoring place that does some sort of free assessment or free evaluation to see where make sure your child is on grade level. Have someone else, because even as homeschoolers, we're with that child all the time, and then we think, oh man, I don't know where they're supposed to be, or they're not where they're supposed to be, and then we kind of go into panic mode. So there's no need to be in panic mode. And if you're not near where there's a tutoring place, you could have someone do an assessment that checks a certified teacher, or someone who works with a certain grade level a lot, so that they would know where they were supposed to be at the end of a certain grade level, and have them do some sort of assessment. Here's what I like to do if they come in to do a grade level assessment. I will start with minute drills for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and I will talk to you as the parent and say, now, I don't want to be like, some kids, as soon as you say you're timing them, they have a moment and then they go crazy and they're scared about being timed, which, no one likes to feel the pressure. No one likes to feel the pressure of being timed. That's why I don't like to cook, because then I feel pressured that it's going to burn, and then, I don't like the pressure of time, and then I'm trying to do 7 things at one time. Well, it's cooking. That's what I like to say. That's what I claim anyway. So no one likes that pressure of being timed. We don't like that. So if there's a child that might feel very anxious about that, I want to do something to make them feel comfortable, but I do need to see how well they know their addition facts, how well they know subtraction, multiplication, and division. And even if they are a high school student for Algebra 2, I check those facts, because 9 times out of 10 for math, it is one of 2 things. Number 1, they don't know their math facts. Number 2, they have fraction fear. They don't know how to do fractions, which we will have a thing coming up to talk about how to do multiplication. I have a great program I love for multiplication, and fractions, how to really teach fractions. I've noticed even high school students don't have a good concept sometimes of what fractions really are. They just kind of glazed over it, never really learned it. And then third, sometimes it's positive and negative numbers, which could even be, which is an addition and subtraction thing sometimes. For reading, there's 2 specific areas you're looking for in reading. There's a lot of students who can read really, really well, and this will start showing up in 3rd grade higher. They read phonetically really, really well. Okay, so there's 2 different areas you're looking for in reading. Number 1, they don't read phonetically, okay? So a lot of times kids will word memorize. A lot of times that's been pushed with big sight words, is they word memorize and then they don't actually read phonetically. So the word might be stop, okay? Stop has 4 sounds. Stop, stop. Well, they see that word and they know that it's stop because they've seen it so many times. It might have become a sight word. So instead of teaching them, some students don't read phonetically, and that will really show up in 3rd and 4th grade, because up until about 3rd grade, we only expect them to know about, 700 or 800 words, okay? A typical student can memorize 700 or 800 words. And then all of a sudden in 4th grade and 5th grade, we want them to be able to do thousands of words and have these thousands of words memorized. And if they don't have the basic phonics skills, then they won't know how to read. So reading, one thing is reading phonetically. The second thing we want to do in reading is you can have a student is reading comprehension. You can have a student who can read really well phonetically. They can pick a paper up and they can read it to you, but then when you ask them, but they hate reading. They're a good reader, but they hate reading. Most of them, and I find this a lot, have what's called verbalizing and visualizing. They don't visualize as they read, so it breaks down on their comprehension. And when I say visualize and you read, when I read, I see it like a movie in my head. Okay, so I love reading books because, you know, there's an entire adventure going on in my head and I'm reading and I'm seeing all this in my head. But some children don't do that. Some high schoolers don't do that. A lot of times we get all the way up into junior high and senior high. We're trying to take the SATs, ACTs. They're struggling with studying for these harder subjects, biology, history. And it's because when they read, they're just reading words. Okay, there's actually a muscle in our brain that we have to work and stretch. And some people, you know, I could probably go out and run a marathon. Well, running is a stretch. I could probably go out and finish a marathon. I could walk it, maybe. I don't know. Let's not get crazy. I couldn't finish it. But if I worked every day on it, I probably could. All right. So if I started working every day and I worked out, my husband's run a marathon before and he worked out hardcore. I mean, he ran for hours and hours, and, you know, hats off to him. That is on my bucket list. Someday I do want to run a marathon. Someday I want to finish a marathon. I don't know if I want to run the whole thing. It seems like a lot of work. I have completed a 40-mile bike ride. So that one thing, I might just put that on my list, is I did a 40-mile bike ride one time. So yay for me. But I didn't just go out and ride 40 miles. I had to work up to that. So a lot of times when we're talking about reading, verbalizing, and visualizing, we can't jump them up to these very hard ACT and SAT passages if we're talking about high schoolers, or if we're talking about 4th grade, a 4th grade passage. We have to start slow. You have to go back, and it takes a long time to really work on reading comprehension. It's kind of hard. What you really need to do is read a sentence. What does that sentence say? Read a sentence. What does that sentence say? It's like starting to work out from the beginning. You know, when we all get really, really aggressive and then we're super sore, our stomach's sore, and then we don't want to do it anymore. So you kind of have to do that same thing when you're working with reading. So reading's a little bit harder, especially if it's a comprehension thing. That's going to take a long time to fix, kind of like, you know, running a marathon, working out how to do that. If we're talking about phonetically, teaching phonetics, some people can pick it up quickly, some people can't. That just depends on the student. When you're talking about math, I feel like math can usually be learned really quickly. Math is the easiest fixed if you're talking about tutoring or how to fix tutoring. So really, you know, when you're thinking about tutoring and what your student needs, and if your student needs tutoring, kind of think about, okay, what is my specific need? Because when I have students come in, I ask specifically, okay, what do you think they need help in? Well, I think they're struggling in reading. Okay, what area they're struggling? And most people don't know, and that's fine too, because, you know, I found that there's a lot of people who know Spanish, but there's not a lot of people who can teach Spanish. It took me a long time to come to the conclusion in my life that there are some people that are good at some things and not good at others. You know, I'm not great at a lot of things, but I am good at teaching math. That's my thing. You know, some people can sew, some people can run marathons, some people can, you know, jump over brick walls, fight crime. I can teach math. Okay, so just because, or maybe you've helped your student a lot, it doesn't hurt to have someone else outside come in and help with those you know, those things that you might need help with. So I guess the main thing I want to kind of say is make sure when you're looking for a tutor, a couple things I always say, qualifications. Here I only have people who have been teachers for a very long time, because the average length of time that our teachers here have taught have been at least 10 years. So I've been teaching for 15. We have lots of people who've been teaching longer than I have. Someone who's done it for a while, that knows kind of what we're looking for. Like I said, a lot of people know Spanish, but not everybody can teach Spanish. So I think that there is a big deal in having someone who can do that. Someone that has a relationship with your child or can build a relationship that they feel really comfortable with, because they're not going to learn from someone they don't like. So I think that's really important. Make sure there's communication between you and that tutor. It's somebody that you as a parent feel really, really comfortable with. And so if kind of what the end result is here, you know, if you think that they're struggling in something, have someone do an assessment with them. It never hurts for them to check out, and then you can feel, oh yeah, we're on grade level, I'm doing a great job here and here. Usually it'll come out that they're really high in this or low in this. It never hurts to check if you're not for sure. And then if you're not, and then that person can give their recommendation going forward. And usually tutors can say, okay, here's some books to work on, here's some things. I usually have some resources that you can work on at home, and then you can go from there if you do need a tutor. So what we're going to do is, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, you can comment here, you can comment on the blog, which we'll be putting some stuff up. We also have a parent's guide to tutoring that I put together a few years ago that'll be on the blog, that'll kind of talk a little bit more in depth on things to ask a tutor, you know, things tutors need to know, things that you should tell a tutor if you're hiring a tutor, different things like that. And so you can find that on the blog today. And then on Thursday, I'll be back if anybody has any questions or comments. And if you can, we really are trying to get to 5,000 likes here on our Facebook page. So if you could like and share and tell people about us, and I will be back live on Thursday at 9:30ish. And so check out the blog. It's www.thehomeschoolconnection.net, and there will be some more information there. And please let me know if you guys have any questions, and I look forward to hearing from y'all. Have a great day.